The Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, has been toppled by the relentless protests. Sheikh Hasina has fled the country. Mr. Mutumbe analyses the chronology of events in the country. Bangladesh, born from a bloody struggle for independence, faced new unrest in the summer of 2024. The echoes of its past struggles seem to reverberate through the streets once more. Protests against a controversial government policy escalated into a political crisis, shaking Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's rule. The streets of Dhaka became a battleground for voices demanding change. The reinstatement of a 30% quota for descendants of freedom fighters in government jobs ignited the turmoil. This policy, seen by many as unfair, sparked widespread outrage. Critics argued the quota fostered resentment and undermined meritocracy. They believed it was a step backward for a nation striving for equality and fairness. Students, incensed by the policy, took to the streets, arguing it limited their job prospects. Their future seemed bleak under a system they felt was rigged against them. The protests spread, drawing in citizens from all walks of life. From students to workers and even families, the movement grew in strength and numbers. The quota issue became a lightning rod for wider public discontent over corruption, rising living costs, and shrinking democratic space. It was a symbol of deeper systemic issues plaguing the nation. The protests soon morphed into a broader expression of anti-government sentiment, capturing the attention of the entire nation. Chants of "No more quota" were replaced by calls for Hasina's resignation, echoing through the streets and resonating with the masses. Young people, frustrated with the status quo, yearned for greater political freedom and social justice. Their voices, once ignored, now demanded to be heard. Social media became their battleground, allowing rapid mobilization and spreading their message far and wide, beyond the borders of Bangladesh. The government's response was swift and brutal, deploying security forces to disperse protesters with tear gas and batons, showing no mercy. Journalists and human rights activists documenting the crackdown were targeted, facing harassment and intimidation as they tried to report the truth. Internet shutdowns and social media blocks created an information blackout, isolating the country and sowing confusion among the populace, making it difficult to organize further protests. The government's heavy-handed response inflamed the protests further. The use of lethal force and internet blackouts fueled public anger. International concern grew, urging Hasina to exercise restraint. Emergency laws granted sweeping powers to security forces, creating a climate of fear and driving many protesters underground. The storming of the Prime Minister's residence marked a turning point. Images of protesters breaking through barricades sent shockwaves through Bangladesh. The government imposed a nationwide curfew and deployed the military. The internet remained shut down, fueling panic and uncertainty. The international community issued urgent calls for restraint and dialogue. The incident exposed deep fissures within Bangladeshi society and growing disillusionment with Hasina's rule. It was the culmination of weeks of mounting tensions and the erosion of democratic space. The storming of the Prime Minister's residence proved to be a tipping point. Facing mounting pressure, Hasina announced her resignation. The news came as a relief to many fearing further bloodshed. However, Hasina's resignation did not signal an immediate end to the crisis. Bangladesh faced an uncertain future, deeply polarized and scarred by recent violence. A caretaker government was installed to oversee the transition and organize fresh elections. The crisis in Bangladesh highlighted the importance of good governance and the protection of fundamental human rights. Hasina's heavy-handed response backfired, fueling the unrest. The protests reflected deeper grievances within society, particularly among the youth. The government's failure to address these grievances created fertile ground for discontent. The crisis underscored the power of peaceful protest in driving social and political change. The protesters' courage and determination serve as an inspiration to others fighting for their rights. As Bangladesh embarks on rebuilding its nation after years of turmoil and natural disasters, it must confront the root causes of the crisis. including political instability and social inequality. The caretaker government must create a conducive environment for free and fair elections, ensuring that every citizen's voice is heard. The international community has a responsibility to support Bangladesh's transition. Investing in education, job creation, healthcare, and poverty reduction will address socio-economic grievances and uplift the marginalized communities. The crisis serves as a cautionary tale about the fragility of democracy and the importance of vigilance. Bangladesh has an opportunity to learn from past mistakes, engage its citizens, and chart a new course towards a more democratic, inclusive, and prosperous future for all its people.